Now, Airbnb aren't the only disruptors in the digital economy. New research published today suggests that job losses from automation will overwhelmingly affect the working class. The analysis by Redshift, which covers England, says that while new jobs will be created, millions of low-paid jobs are at risk from automation. It suggests that 5 times more working-class jobs are expected to be lost through automation than were lost in the running down of the coal and steel industries in the 1980s. More than 1 million jobs are expected to be lost amongst the poorest 10% of UK workers. Amongst the bottom 25% of the job market, where workers earn less than £9 an hour, more than 2 million jobs are at high risk of automation. And in a survey for the think tank, a quarter of people thought the government wasn't doing enough in response to automation in the workplace. Well, to discuss this is the Labour MP, Byrne, who is also Shadow Digital Minister, who assembled the report, which would make sense, I presume, wouldn't it? The clue's in the title.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do about it?
So I think we've got to do 2 things. We've got to start looking at how we create new jobs. So ideas like regional investment banks, new investment in technology, creating those new jobs for people to move to. That's thing 1 we've got to do. Thing 2 we've got to do is we're probably going to have to reinvent the way our social security system works so that actually people can get retrained when their old job is automated. What was really, really striking about the polling was that 70% of people thought that it was government's job to help retrain workers for new jobs. Right now, though, if you're, say, in your 50s and you lose your job, you'll have paid in about £105,000 of national insurance. So you paid in a lot. If you lose your job, you're sent down the job centre like everybody else. You don't get any extra help retraining. So there's quite a big change in the kind of the social safety net that we need to create in Britain to help the country move on.
What are these new jobs that people are going to do?
So we don't know, and if you look back over the last couple of 100 years, whenever there's a big industrial revolution, new jobs are created, and they're quite hard to predict. But we do know that they're going to be jobs that involve what the economists call non-routine work, so stuff that can't be automated by robots. And part of the reason for publishing the report is to say, look, we've got to get focused now on where the impact is going to be, because during the 80s, we didn't think through how we were going to help communities adapt and change when coal and steel and shipbuilding was shut down. Let's not make that mistake again. Let's look at what we know is coming down the track and start making preparations today.
Is it the government's responsibility to look at retraining what could be hundreds of thousands of people to be prepared, millions of people,
3 million
to be
people
prepared for these new jobs?
Yeah, look, it is partly the government's responsibility because this is such profound structural change in the economy. This isn't one where you can just blame people for losing their jobs. We're going through, the 4th revolution in tech, as you would say, and they do need to take control, and they haven't been doing that. I mean, one of my frustrations for Brexit, for instance, about Brexit is that we're not thinking about these other issues that are so important.
Although employment levels, of course, are very high, aren't they, at the moment?
But if you look at the proportion in zero-hour contracts, self-employed that is quite low paid, there's some real issues about the quality of work, and there's some real issues about how much debt households are in. So something doesn't quite add up there in terms of, yes, they're in work, but that work doesn't seem to give them the kind of well-being that you would expect. And so there's a few things that need to happen, and I agree it's partly the government's role. I heard a very senior exec recently say that if they don't do something about the education system in particular, then there won't just be a 4th revolution, there'll actually just be a revolution.
And what needs to be done about the education system?
I think that businesses have to be, if they're going to say they need people to be reskilled all the time and things are moving on, then they need to pay more in taxes and make sure that we have that funding there to invest in education. But other things as well, like universal basic services, for instance. We've spoken a lot about what we need to do in social security and income. But if housing is cheaper, if your internet is free, if transport is cheaper, then that just makes it much easier for everyone to live a decent life.
But would you accept that people have been quite nimble in the recession that we've gone through in order to either start their own businesses, their own companies? They have found employment themselves.
They have, but it's very insecure. So about 1 in 5 workers now work in the gig economy. That's the same number of people as work in the public sector now.
And well, we're not going to see more of that in the future.
Well, I think possibly, and the risk is that those people are not blessed with the same kind of employment rights as anybody else. And crucially, they're not helped to develop assets. So they're not helped to develop savings or deposits for a home or crucially, saving into a pension. And so the social security system is going to have to change, so it basically helps people build up assets over the course of their life, as well as retrain. And look, if we don't get this right, the current trends in inequality are just going to grow and grow. So we think that by 2030, if current trends persist, the top 1% will control 2/3 of global wealth. If we don't change the system to help working people get richer and prosper in the future, that is the outcome that we're looking at. So we're at a fork in the road.
Liam Byrne, thank you.
Thank you.